After completing my 10th class exams in 1979, my father suggested that I go and help my father's uncle and learn astrology. Mathematics being my favorite subject, I learned the calculations. My grandfather taught me how to calculate the inclinations of each planet and how to calculate the lagna and the meridian center MC, and he gave me some birth charts to draw. Thus, I learned how to draw the birth charts first and showed interest in predictions. So, my grandfather told me some predictions, some of the tips that he usually uses for predictions, and after learning those tips, I documented some of them. I verified with my father. While my father and my grandfather have laid the foundation for me to get interested in astrology for almost a decade or 2 decades, I didn't show any interest. Let's go a little bit from the astronomy perspective, and what you can see is that in the Milky Way, galaxy, our Milky Way galaxy, if you draw a center line and call that center line as the galactic center, then what happened is in 3000 BC, Sun was on the left side of the galactic center. Slowly in 1500 BC it moved a little bit, and from 1500 BC in 2012, on 21st December 2012, Sun is exactly on the galactic center. So from that is the reason why if you hear some of these what you call the so-called religious discussions, they say that there is the end of the world is going to come in on 21st December 2012. That is because astronomically on that day, between 21st and 22nd of December 2012, the Sun will be on the galactic center, exactly lying on the center of that our whole Milky Way galaxy. It's lying on the center line, and then from 22nd December it moved away from and moved to the other side of the galactic center alignment. So you can see that by 3000 AD it will be exactly the distance where Sun was in 3000 BC, that much farther away it will be on the other side in 3000 AD.
Let's now see what is the definition of the galactic center. Galactic center is a point on the galactic equator around which our whole Milky Way galaxy turns. That means it just turns around that galactic center and on the galactic equator. And it was discovered somewhere in 1974, and this was exactly with the fitting with the northern node at 27 degrees Sagittarius, and Saturn is at the southern node. That's the reason why whenever Saturn enters the Sagittarius, that means it is on the galactic equator. That's when things will be completely different in the Milky Way, and especially in our solar system. Let's go and look at how is our solar Milky Way. If you look at it, the Milky Way is at an inclination, slow inclined, and it is spiraling around. And you can see that the center of the Milky Way there is a bulge. At the end of the Milky Way, on one side it is a disk, which they call it as disks, and then you have the spiral arms around the Milky Way, which you can see on the left side of the picture. And when you go to the right side of the picture, you can see that how far is our solar system, especially our Sun. From the center, from the where in our Milky Way, where there is a big bulge, from there approximately 28,000 light years away is where our Sun is residing. And that means it will take, since the Milky Way is moving at a speed of 180,000 kilometers per second on the galactic equator. It is circling around the galactic equator, and while circling around the galactic equator, it's also moving forward and at a speed of 180,000 kilometers per second. So you can see, once this sun, our solar system, along is moving forward, there is a possibility that this solar system, when it is moving, where I'm going to show you in the next slide, how the solar system in the Milky Way is moving its position, and slowly it's coming closer and closer to the bulge, which is 28,000 light years away. And somewhere after some time, some 3 or 4 billion years later, our sun will be very close to the bulge of the Milky Way. That means that the black hole, whatever the black hole is residing there will absorb our whole solar system. Let me now explain you how our Milky Way is moving in a forward direction with respect to the galactic equator. If you see in the picture, the Milky Way is moving on one direction. Currently, on 21st December 2012, the center of the Milky Way is exactly on the galactic center. That's where you are seeing, and slowly it goes under, because the galactic equator is a plane. You'll see that in that imaginary plane, underneath the imaginary plane is where our Milky Way is starting 21st December 2012, and slowly it rotates and moves forward, and after some time it touches the Milky Way equator on the top of the plane, and again it will be going on the top of the galactic plane. So this is how our Milky Way galaxy rotates around this, and while it is not only rotating, circulating around the imaginary galactic plane, it's also, the whole galaxy is also moving forward at a speed of 828,000 kilometers per hour. So that tells you that our Milky Way is not stationary. And in one of my presentation, I used the same concept, astronomy concept, and then using the astrological calculations, I justified why the sun, it does not enter the Makara Rasi on the same day. The first time it entered the Makara Rasi on 17th of December is at 1 century, it means 1 AD. That is in year 1. On 17th of December, year 1, the sun was in Makara Rasi, and slowly it moved. It just started going forward, and again, for sun to be on 21st December, for the sun to enter the Makara Rasi, it will take 36,500 years starting from 1 AD. That means in the year 36,500, on 21st December, that year 36,500, sun will enter the Makara Rasi again. So this is the reason why this whole galactic equator, the imaginary galactic plane, is stationary, but the whole galaxy is rotating around it. Underneath, sometimes it will be underneath, and sometimes it will be above the galactic plane. As I explained earlier, the sun rotates and does have the vertical oscillations, and for the whole galaxy to go underneath the galactic plane and come on the top of the galactic plane, it will take approximately 250 million years. That's how it takes 250 million years to make one orbit around the galactic plane. So in this 250 million years, whenever the sun touches or bisects the galactic disk, then the gravitational pull, or the gravitational, is so strong that some scientists call it as disk tides. And it is this disk tides which is 4 times stronger than the normal gravitational stuff, makes the whole galaxy vibrate or create some chaos in the galactic, in our Milky Way. And exactly, this particular time takes place approximately once in every 3 million years. And now on 2012 December 21st, since the Milky Way galaxy has touched the center of the galactic center on the galactic equator, now it will be taking approximately another 1.5 million years to go on, will be approximately another 1.5 million years under the galactic plane. The scientists, Ramipino, Michael, and Bruce, they have did some research and about the impacts, the mass extinctions, and our Milky Way galaxy, and found out that this particular extinctions occurs almost every once in every 26 to 30 million years, and they have named their hypothesis as Shiva hypothesis. Having done the whole introduction about our galactic center, the galactic equator, the Milky Way, and how vibrant is our Milky Way galaxy, what I did was in year 2012 on 21st of December, as I said earlier, the humans, we from the Earth will look at the galactic plane from beneath the galaxy. So on that particular day, this will happen precisely on 21st December 2012 at 11:11 a.m. GMT. So what I did was exactly at 11:11 a.m. GMT on that day, I picked up few places on this planet and then generated the astrological charts to see is there any possibility for something that is similar between these and astrological charts.
Okay, let me start talking about the planet inclinations on that particular day. When you look at it, the most important thing that you have to see is the sun, which are the planets that are in Rashi Sandhi. That's the first thing you need to look at it, and the second thing is to look at what are the planets that are in exalted or debilitated conditions. So when you look at it, sun is in 5 degrees 58 minutes, that's approximately 6 degrees, so it just came out of the Rashi Sandhi. So you cannot consider sun as it's in Rashi Sandhi. So let's go to the next one. Is moon. The moon is 20 degrees, that's fine. Mars is 2 degrees in Capricorn. Remember, first of all, in Capricorn, Mars is in exalted position. So the most violent planet of Mars is in exalted position. That's the first thing. Second thing, it's a Rashi Sandhi. So that means it's not sure whether Mars, you should consider Mars is in Sagittarius or Mars is in Capricorn. So there's no surety there. That means that Mars is neither fully exalted, nor you cannot say that it is not at all exalted. That's the chaotic part where Mars, the most important planet Mars, is residing. So when you look at the Lagna for that particular native, then you can try to see like what is the lordship that the Mars owns, and those are the houses that will have this type of chaotic behavior, and you can see that particular chaotic behavior of the planet will be reflecting in the native's life. After Mars, what you need to do, what is the next one is Mercury. Mercury is 20 degrees just like moon, so we don't need to worry about it. And then comes Jupiter. Jupiter is 14 degrees, that's perfectly fine. Venus is 12 degrees, that's also fine. And then comes Saturn. Saturn is in Libra. Libra is a place where Saturn is considered to be exalted, and Saturn, the inclination is 14 degrees 38 minutes. That means Saturn is fully exalted in that particular house. So whatever the role of the Saturn is, depending upon the houses it owns, depending on the house it resides, you can figure it out, how it impacts the particular natives in his or her lifetime. But one thing you have to keep in mind is that here Saturn is fully exalted. The next thing is Rahu and Ketu. Oh gosh, Rahu and Ketu are in 0 degrees. Rahu is in 0 degrees Scorpion and Ketu is 0 degrees Taurus. So if you say Scorpion, if you assume Rahu as 0 degrees in Scorpion, we'll assume that way. So it's in Rashi Sandhi between Scorpion and what's the previous one? Libra. That's where exalted Saturn is residing. That means Rahu is in a Rasi Sandhi where it's partially in co-joined with exalted transit Saturn, and that's the most important thing that you have to keep in mind when you are considering the natives for this, particularly this particular natives chart, irrespective of what the lagna is.
Let me start analyzing the individual chart. We know that I picked up around 7 or 8 of the charts, individuals born on 21st December 2012 in different places on Earth, and then for all the 8 charts, I'm analyzing in the charts individually just to look at like how would that native will be, whether it's a male or female. That's not the point here. How would that native be? And this is the first chart. The native was born at 3:11 a.m. in Los Angeles. When it is 11:11 a.m. in GMT, then it will be 3:11 a.m. in Los Angeles exactly. So when I generated the chart, I found out that the lagna is Libra. That means the lagnadipati is Venus. The lagnadipati Venus is in the 2nd house. Fine. The lagna is Libra and Saturn is in Libra at that time, and Saturn is exalted. That's very, very powerful here. Saturn is very, very powerful. It's on 14 degrees inclination and exalted. So from lagna, 1st house, it is having a direct aspect on the 7th house from Rashi Lagna, and having an aspect on the 2nd house from Chandra Lagna. So the 7th house and the 2nd house from Chandra Lagna. Also, another thing that you have to look at it is for this particular native, the Lagnadipati Venus, the 1st and 8th house Lord Venus, 8th house Lord. Remember, the 1st and 8th house Lord Venus is in the 2nd house, Marakasthanamu. First of all, Venus is the 8th house Lord. That means it is a functional malefic. It is residing in the 2nd house, Marakasthanamu. So Venus became further bad. As if that's not sufficient, it's co-joined with the 12th house Lord Mercury and Rahu. Gosh. And Rahu is co-joined with Venus, and Rahu is having a direct aspect on the house owned by Venus. Again, which is the 8th house from Rashi Lagna, is where the Venus owns it. So this is something specific, and not only specific, very unique. And now let's go and look at Saturn's 3rd aspect is on the 3rd house, where Sun, Saturn's bitter enemy, and the 11th house Lord, Labasthana Adipati and Kamasthana Adipati, Sun is residing in the 3rd house from Rashi Lagna and having an aspect. Saturn's 3rd aspect is on Sun. And another thing you have to look at it is Saturn's 10th aspect is on Moon, house owned by Moon. And from Moon, Saturn is permanently is on the 8th house. That means this particular native has Ashtama Shani for the whole life. The native has Ashtama Shani, and the 1st and 8th house Lord is residing in the 2nd house, Marakasthanamu, co-joined with the 12th house Lord Mercury and Rahu. Saturn is having the 3rd aspect is on the 11th house Lord Sun, who is its bitter enemy. And another thing we have to look at is Mars. Mars is residing in the 4th house, and its 4th aspect is on the 7th house, which it owns. So Saturn is looking at the 7th house. Mars is also looking at the 7th house. So 7th house is very complicated here for this particular native. And Mars, when you look at it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Mars, the 7th aspect is on the house owned by Moon, and the 8th aspect is on the house owned by Sun. Fortunately, both the 7th aspect and 8th aspect houses are empty. That's very, very good sign. So overall, there's a lot of things that we can talk, say, for these possibilities for this particular native, and it all depends on how the native's gender, the native social and economic situations, and this native is born in Los Angeles, United States. So depending upon the environment where the native was brought up. Let's go and look at the second chart. The same native born on 21st December 2012, but this time the native is time of birth is 6:11 a.m. and this is in at Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, in USA. So if you look at it, wow, look at it. The Lagna has changed to Scorpio. When the native was born in Los Angeles, the Lagna was Libra, and when the native was born in Pittsburgh, US, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, the Lagna is now Scorpio. So the Lagnadipati is Mars. Mars is in the 3rd house from Rashi Lagna, and in Lagna you have Rahu, Venus and Mercury. Venus is the 12th house lord and the 7th house lord. 7th and 12th house lord Venus is residing in the 1st house. So Venus is having a direct aspect on its own house, the 7th house. That's a good sign. Unfortunately, Venus is co-joined with Rahu and they both are having a direct aspect on the 7th house. Oh, Rahu is in the 1st house. Oh my gosh. And Saturn is exalted, and this time Saturn is in the 7th house, in the 12th house. Remember the moon, when you look from Chandra Lagna for all these natives, irrespective of what the Rashi Lagna is, from Chandra Lagna for all these natives, they are going to have the permanent Ashtama Shani because Saturn is permanently exalted in the 8th house from natal moon. And now let's go and look at it. Saturn's 3rd aspect is on the 2nd house. Oh my God. Saturn's 3rd aspect is on the 2nd house, and the 2nd house lord and Sun is residing there. Sun is the bitter enemy for Saturn, and Sun is the lord of the 10th house here. That's okay. And Saturn's 7th aspect is on the 6th house owned by Mars, and Mars' 4th aspect is again on the 6th house owned by Mars. 6th house is Rogasthanamo and deaths and illness, and if you look at it, Saturn residing in the 12th house exalted, looking at the 6th house, and Mars, the 6th house lord, is looking at the 6th house again. Rahu in the 1st house looking at the 7th house. Saturn is having a 3rd aspect on the 2nd house. This particular native's basically health will be very challenging, and apart from that, at this point I cannot say more than that. This is the 3rd chart. The native was born at 8:11 a.m. in Buenos Aires in Argentina. The date is still the same. So as I said earlier, for all these natives from Chandra Lagna, Saturn is in the 8th house, period. Nothing can be done. They all are going through the Ashtama Shani. People, kids, natives born on this day in any part of the world will go through Ashtama Shani for sure. Now the next thing you have to see is what is the Lagna for this particular native who was born in Buenos Aires. The Lagna is Capricorn. Lagnadipati is Saturn. Wow, the Lagnadipati is Saturn, and Saturn is 7th aspect is on the 4th house, and Mars 4th aspect is in the 1st house. That means Mars is having a 4th aspect on its own house, which is the 4th house. Now comes the question is, Saturn's 3rd aspect is on 12th house, and the 12th house means 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. In 12th house, Sun is residing. Sun is the 8th house lord. So Saturn, the Lagnadipati, and the 2nd Marakasthanadipati, the 2nd house lord, Saturn, its 3rd aspect is on Sun on the 12th house, which is the place of cure. and Sun is the 8th house lord. The is 8th house is house of death. Oh my gosh. And as if that is not sufficient, Mars' 4th aspect is on the 4th house and Saturn's 7th aspect is on the 4th house. And Rahu is looking at the 5th house. Venus is also looking at the 5th house. Mercury is looking at the 5th house. Okay, so I can't say anything at this point, but either the native will be sick for a long time with a threat to his or her life, or the same goes for mother, because the 4th house is Matrusthanamo, and from moon it is the 2nd house. That means Marakasthanamo for mother. Wow, this is the actual. See, on the galactic center, our Milky Galaxy will be on the galactic center on 21st December 2012 at 11:11 a.m. GMT. That means this is the chart. This is the actual NATO. And what you notice is that the chart is exactly the same, whether for the same NATO, between this particular NATO and the NATO who was born in Buenos Aires. So if you look at it, these two natives are the Zodiac Identical Twins, because they have the same Lagna, the Lagnadipati is same, all of the planets are perfectly same, and for all these natives, one thing is common is their Vimshattari Dasa is also exactly the same. So what you can say is that the native who was born in Buenos Aires and the native who was born in Galxay, United Kingdom, Buenos Aires, Argentina, and the native born in Galxay, United Kingdom, these two natives are Zodiac Identical Twins. I have already given the definition of the Zodiac Identical Twins, and these two natives are the Zodiac Identical Twins. Let's go and look at the chart of the native who was born on that day at 13:11 hours in Cairo, Egypt. The Lagna, wow, the Lagna is Aries. The Lagnadipati Mars is in the 10th house. That's the crucial, that's the scary part. The Lagnadipati Mars is Mars, and Mars is in the 10th house. 10th house is career, and from the 10th house, Mars is directly looking at the 1st house. So this particular native's career will be something that's pertaining to defense, police, law and order, or military, or chemicals, or toxins, something like that. Because the Lagnadipati is strongly in the 10th house. And as if that's not sufficient, Saturn is in the 7th house. The 10th house lord is Saturn, residing in the 7th house and having a direct aspect on the 1st house. So Saturn is looking at the house owned by Mars. Mars is residing in the house owned by Saturn and looking at the house, looking at its own house. My gosh, this is amazing chart. So this particular native, whether it's a male or a female, would be having a profession that is something related to military or police, law and order, or if that is not there, if that is not possible, then it's an engineering student, because the 9th house, in the 9th house lord is Jupiter, and Sun is residing in the 9th house. So an engineering student with emphasis in chemical engineering, toxins, something like that. This is the native who was born in Mumbai, India at 16:41 hours. When it is 11:11 a.m. GMT, then it is equal to 16:41 hours in Mumbai, India. So when you look at this particular chart, the Lagna is Taurus, the Lagnadipati is Venus. Venus is residing in the 7th house from Rashi Lagna. That means from 7th house, Venus, the Lagnadipati, is having a direct aspect on the 1st house, and Lagnadipati Venus also owns the 6th house. So the 1st and the 6th house lord is residing in the 7th house, which is the Marakasthanamo. And in the 6th house, as I said earlier, Saturn is exalted. So 7, 8, 9, 10. So the 8th house lord is Jupiter. Jupiter is residing in the 1st house, and Jupiter is co-joined with Ketu and having a direct aspect from the sixth house Lord Venus and Rahu. Oh my God. And as if that is not sufficient, exalted Saturn is looking at the 12th house, Aries, and owned by Mars. And Mars' fourth aspect is again on Aries, which is the 12th house. I don't know. I don't know what to tell without knowing more in detail about this particular native. This is a native who was born in Laos. I don't know where exactly is this country, Laos, but somehow I liked it because the timing is 18:11 hours. So when I looked at it, the Lagnadipati is Gemini. Lagna is Gemini and the Lagnadipati is Mercury. So Mercury, Lagnadipati and the fourth house Lord Mercury is residing in the sixth house, co-joined with the 12th house Lord Venus and Rahu. Great, great. And as usual, exalted Saturn is looking at the 11th house, and the 11th house Lord Mars is also looking at the 11th, and the 6th house Lord Mars is again looking at the 11th house. It's not much to say about this particular native. This is the last chart in my analysis, and this is for the native who was born in Tokyo at 21 hours 11 minutes. Okay, this is something special. The chart that was for the native who was born in Cairo, and the chart for the native who was born in Tokyo. These two charts are exclusively unique. So we just have to look for like 20 years. I'll tell you when. Approximately from 2032 onwards, when the Venus Mahadasha begins, when the native is 20 years old, and the Venus Mahadasha begins, and it will last for 16 years, so up to the age of 36. So from the age 20 till age 36, for this, the natives who are born in Cairo and Tokyo, these two charts, they are amazing charts, and we have to just, at least I won't know whether I can monitor, hear them or not, but they are amazing charts. Let me look at this Tokyo natives chart. The Lagnadipati is Sun. Wow. And Sun is in the 5th house. Sun is in the 5th house, and Saturn, the 6th and 7th house Lord Saturn, third aspect is on the Lagnadipati. Oh my goodness. And Saturn is having a direct aspect on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 9th house, Dharmasthanamu. Great. The Dharmasthana and the Dharmasthanadipati is Mars, and Mars is having, from using its fourth aspect, is also looking at the Dharmasthanamu. So two malefics are looking at the Dharmasthanamu, and the Lagnadipati is Sun, and the Sun is in the 5th house, and the 5th house and Saturn's third aspect is on Sun. Oh, great. I don't know. This, so like I said, something pertaining to this particular person might be having some sort of a government related powerful person, and that was more inclined to do something that is against dharma. Let me just talk about the biological twin, definition of the biological twins. Usually what happens is that when you say it is a twins, there are two types of twins for mammals. One is the identical twins, and the other is the fraternal twins. For the identical twins, they have it is that they have only one embryo is formed, and that particular one embryo breaks into two pieces. That's identical. Then the identical twins are born. If there are the two different eggs are formed, then they are called the fraternal twins. This is the definition of the biological twins for mammals. Now that I told you about the way we went through the definition of the biological twins, let's try and look at what is the definition of the zodiac twins. Zodiac twins are very peculiar twins. Suppose we know that, consider twins that are born on the same day, same month, but at a different time or different place, or both, and different time, when the ascendant is same and the Vimsottari Dasa is also same. When the ascendant is same and the Vibhusottari Dasa is also same, then those two natives are called as zodiac twins. That's exactly what we found out in our examples, is that the native was born in Buenos Aires and the native who was born in Galxay, United Kingdom, they both have Capricorn as its Rashi Lagna, and all the 8 charts that I went through have the same Vibhusottari Dasa. So the natives who were born in Buenos Aires and the native born in the Galxay, those two natives are called as zodiac twins. In other words, these two babies are the zodiac identical twins.
We had gone through 8 examples of the zodiac charts. All the eight natives were born on the same day, 21st December 2018, but at different time zones. And for all of them, I picked up that the time zone is 11:11 a.m. GMT. So at 11:11 a.m. GMT in different parts of the world, what will be the time? And then I picked up that time and then created 8 charts. Now the job is to, and earlier I explained for each and every individual chart, I had analyzed the chart and just gave you a rough explanation, because we don't know exactly who the native is and what's the native's social and economic situations. So having come now that I completed all the 8 charts analysis individually, then comes the question is, what is this commonality between the 8 charts? Of these 8 charts, I found 2 charts, only just 2 charts that is 100% similar. These two natives who were born during this time, means at 11:11 a.m. GMT in Galxay, United Kingdom, and at 8:11 a.m. in Buenos Aires, Argentina. Those are the two physical geographical locations. In these two geographical locations, at that specific time, 11:11 a.m. in Galxay and 8:11 a.m. in Buenos Aires, all the natives that were born are being considered to be as zodiac identical twins. The reason why I specified as zodiac identical twins is because the natives who are born at that particular time are going to have everything similar. As I shown you in the screen, you can see that the Lagna is Capricorn for both the natives who are born in both the places. The Lagna is still Capricorn, and the inclination of Lagna is not that much to worry about. And then all the other, because the Lagna is Capricorn and Moon is same inclination, so naturally all the dasa systems will be the same. So let's go and see specifically these two particular charts and see how could the native be. See, one is in Galxay, United Kingdom, the other is in Buenos Aires, Argentina. Both the countries are completely different in their culture, in their economic standards. So naturally the way the native is born, his environment is completely different, both from the financial perspective and the society norms perspective. So with the Lagna being the Capricorn, the Lagnadipati is Saturn. Saturn is the lord of the first and second houses, and Saturn is exalted and residing in the 10th house, Libra. That's where Saturn is residing. So the first and second house lord is residing in the 10th house, indicating that the native is very strong. The native will be very strong in career, that is more closely related to Saturn or the characteristics of Saturn. Here Saturn is also the second house lord. Second house deals with Dhanasthanamo. So, and Saturn is in 10th house. So this tells you that the career is so strong for this particular native. And if I remember, if Saturn is the first house lord, they usually say that the native will be dark colored, will have a dark colored skin. I don't know about that part of it. I'm not going to talk about those things. The second thing is, since Saturn is the Lagnadipati, let's go and see from 10th house, what are the houses what is the primary role of Saturn here. We know that Saturn has 3 aspects. The first aspect is on the 3rd house. So from the 10th house, The third aspect is on the 12th house, where the 8th house lord sun is residing. First of all, being 8th house lord, sun is the lord of the 8th house, is by default a functional malefic, and now sun is residing there. Sun is the bitter enemy for Saturn. Saturn is the first and second house lord. Second house lord is Marakasthanam. So Saturn is natural malefic and Saturn is a Marakasthanadipati, is looking at the 8th house lord, who is his bitter enemy, and that too in the 12th house. 12th house deals a lot. Foreign settlements, imprisonment, or place of cure, or hospitalization, something like that. So this particular stuff, the third aspect itself is very, very crucial for this particular NATO, and you will see that impact whenever the Saturn Antardasa is coming, or whenever the transit Saturn is touching the most important houses. Right now, transit Saturn is in Sagittarius, which is the 12th house for these two natives, for the natives who are for these two in these two charts. So whatever the impact that I have said, is the particular native somewhere in Galxay or Buenos Aires is facing it. So that means the 8th house lord is Saturn is looking at the 8th house lord sun. Saturn is the Marakasthanadipati. 8th house lord sun is the bitter enemy for Saturn. Transit Saturn is now in Sagittarius. That means it is also touching the 8th house lord. So I don't know what exactly is happening for this particular NATO. The second thing I want to tell is the first house. In first house, you have Mars. Mars indicates that the NATO will be very violent or aggressive, or something pertaining to aggressive nature. And Mars here is the 11th house lord, house of desires, and also the lord of the 4th house, Sukhasthanamo or Matrusthanamo. That means sun indicates father, moon indicates mother, and here sun is the 8th house lord, and transit Saturn and natal Saturn are somehow or the other having an impact on the 8th house lord sun. Sun indicates father. Also Mars indicates it's a 4th house lord, and 4th house indicates mother too. So, and Mars is right now in the first house, and its 4th aspect is again on the first house, and that indicates that the mother for this particular native is either aggressive, or the relationship between the mother and the native is very, very dynamic and enmity. There might be having a lot of enmity between mother and the native, or the mother might be having some sort of a surgery. Look at this. Right now, transit Saturn and transit Mars. This is in the month of March, April 2018, probably a little bit of May 2018. During these 3 months, in these 90 days, for at least 50 to 60 days, transit Saturn and transit Mars are co-joined in Sagittarius, which is the 12th house, and Mars being the 4th house lord residing in the first house, having the 4th aspect on the 4th house, and 12th house is hospitalizations or imprisonment or foreign travel. A lot of things can be guessed just during this particular 50 days of time. Let's go and look at another important thing is transit Jupiter. Transit Jupiter right now, at least until August 2018, transit Jupiter will be in Libra. Libra is the 10th house. Okay, 10th house is Karmasthanamo too. So, and Jupiter is the 12th house lord. 12th house lord, transit Jupiter is residing in the 10th house, co-joined with exalted natal Saturn. That's a very tough part of it. And transit Saturn is residing in the 12th house, owned by Jupiter. So there is transit Saturn is having a relationship with the natal Jupiter. Transit Jupiter is having a relationship with the natal Saturn. So whenever any sort of a relationship exists between Jupiter and Saturn, hurdles and disappointments are sure to happen. So based on this, what I can say is something is happening for this particular native, in particular native's life, pertaining to mother or father, one of the parent. And I would strongly say it would be father, because sun is in the 12th house, 8th house, Lord Sun is in the 12th house, and transit natal Saturn is looking at transit natal Sun, and transit Saturn is co-joining with natal Sun, and and transit Mars is just now entered. So something is happening there for the native's father, and whatever is happening is having some sort of a relationship with the native's mother.
We have identified the Zodiac Identical Twins as the twins that were born, as the natives that were born on 21st December in Buenos Aires, I forgot the time, and again on 21st December in Galxay. So these two are the Zodiac Identical Twins. Now let's go and see, since they both have the same Rashi Lagna, let's go and start analyzing their D1 chart. Keep in mind that astrological chart is only tells you about that particular native, but the actual chart, the destiny, is depends upon the natives and social and economic conditions, the environment where the native was born and brought up. All those things play a vital role for the natives, and those things might change the behavior of this particular native. So let's go and look at the first house, the Lagnadipati. The Lagnadipati for this particular Lagna is Capricorn. So the Lagnadipati is Saturn. Saturn is exalted here. The second house lord is Saturn, and Saturn is also exalted here. And where is Saturn? Saturn is in the 10th house, and 10th house is career. Wow. And then comes the third house. The third house lord is Jupiter. Jupiter is malefic here, and Jupiter is in the 5th house. And the fourth house lord is Mars. Mars is also malefic, and Mars is also exalted. Wow. So because Saturn is the lord of the first and second houses and residing in the 10th house, Saturn became a benefic for this particular native. Now, the other one is because Jupiter is the second house lord, Marakasthanadipati, it became a functional malefic. Mars is by default a malefic, and it's now exalted, and it's in the first house and having a direct aspect on the 7th, 4th, 7th, and 8th houses. Next comes the fifth house is Vidyasthanamu or Putrasthanamu. Fifth house is Vidyasthanamu, which is the Venus. Venus is residing in the 11th house, co-joined with Mercury and Rahu. Sixth house lord is Mercury, and Mercury is also in the 11th house, co-joined with Venus and Rahu. The 7th house lord is Moon. Moon became a malefic because it's the lord of the 7th house, Marakasthanamu, functional malefic, and it is in the 3rd house. And then comes the next one is the 8th house lord is Sun, which is neutral. Actually, 8th house lord, it can be treated as a malefic too. And 8th house lord Sun is residing in the 12th house. The 9th house lord is again Mercury, and the 9th house lord Mercury is in the 11th house. The 10th house lord Venus is in the 11th house. The 11th house lord Mars, which is exalted, a malefic exalted, is in the 1st house. And the 12th house lord Jupiter is again malefic, it's in the 5th house. So overall what you can see is Mars and Saturn, the two planets, are exalted. Okay, Jupiter and Moon are malefics here. Jupiter and Moon are malefics here. And even though Venus is a benefic, Venus and Mercury are benefic, it is co-joined with Rahu, thus getting afflicted. And the most important thing that you have to look here is Saturn being exalted, being the 1st and 2nd house lord, it became a benefic for this particular native. Let's now look at this particular chart and look at the important planets aspecting. Let's start with Sun. Sun is residing in the 12th house, so its direct aspect is on the 6th house. So the 12th house residing, Sun residing in the 12th house is having a direct aspect on the 6th house. 12th house, if you look from the health perspective, 12th house is place of cure, and the 6th house is Rogasthanamo. If you look in general, 12th house is house of expenditures, and the 6th house is house of debts. And sometimes 12th house is deals with the foreign travels and foreign settlement. At that point, 6th house is employment conditions. So since we don't know the native, anything about this particular native, out of these are the three things that the sun might give a result depending upon how you look at it. The next one is moon. Moon is in the 3rd house. Its direct aspect is on the 9th house. Nothing specific. 9th house is Dharmasthanam. Next is Mercury. Mercury is in the 11th house. Its direct aspect is on the 5th house, where Jupiter, the 12th house lord, Jupiter is residing. So look at it. Mercury is the 9th house lord, and 6th and 9th house lord Mercury. 6th and 9th house lord Mercury is having a direct aspect on the 12th house lord Jupiter. See again. So this particular native, something is unique for this particular native because Mercury, 6th house lord is having a direct aspect on the 12th house lord. Next comes Venus. Venus is the 5th and the 10th house lord. 5th and the 10th house lord residing in the 11th house and having a direct aspect on the 5th house, which is the 12th house lord Jupiter. Then comes the most important planets, the ones that have multiple aspects. Mars. Mars is Lagnadhipa, is in 1st house, so it will have an aspect on the 4th house, which is its own house. The 4th house is Sukhasthanamo or Matrusthanamo. 7th house is Kalatrasthanamo, and the 8th house is house of death. So Mars is having a direct aspect on the 7th and 8th houses, along with the 4th house, its own house. Jupiter is the 12th house lord, 12th and 3rd house lord. So Jupiter, being the 12th house lord, is residing in the 5th house, and it's having an aspect on the 9th house. Remember, from Mercury is having a direct aspect on Jupiter, and Jupiter is looking at the 9th house owned by Mercury, and again Jupiter is also looking at the 11th house where the 9th house lord Mercury, 6th and 9th house lord Mercury is residing. And Jupiter is also looking at the 1st house. Oh gosh, Jupiter 12, 11, 10, 9th. Oh, Jupiter's 9th aspect is on the 1st house again, where the 4th house lord is Mars is residing. That's a very, very unique part of it. That's not a good sign. Now let's go to the Saturn. Saturn is in the 10th house, so Saturn's 3rd aspect is on the 12th house where Sun is residing. The 8th house lord, the Sun, is residing. Saturn's direct aspect is on the 4th house owned by Mars, and Mars' 4th aspect is on the 4th house. So the 4th house is now looked by two malefics, Mars and Saturn. Now Saturn here is a functional benefic and exalted too, so we don't know what exactly is happening for this particular native when it comes to home life environment or the native's mother. 4th house also deals with Matrusthanamo, and Saturn's 10th aspect is on 7th house again. That's not a good sign. Saturn's 10th aspect is on the 7th house, and who is the lord of the 7th house? 7th house lord is Moon. Okay, that's good. Okay, now let's go and look at Rahu and Ketu. Rahu and Ketu, even though I do show the other aspects, but I do consider only their direct aspect. So Rahu's direct aspect is on the 5th house, and Ketu's direct aspect is on the 11th house. Having gone through the D1 chart, the first and the foremost that usually I do is to look at the longevity of the native, because we don't know anything about this particular native. The best thing is to look for the Balarishta to make sure that whether the native is still alive or not. If the native has no Balarishtas, then look for the native's longevity. And basically the native has no Balarishtas apart from the moon. From moon, Saturn is in the Ashtama Shani, and Saturn is the 12th house lord from moon. Apart, so there will be a frequent hospital visits and life-threatening issues, medical issues for this particular native. And now let's go and look at the longevity. There is a unique methodology called Udu Dasa I think this is some dasa that I found out in Astrological magazine in 1950, published in 1956 or 1960 somewhere. So I went through that magazine and whatever the author, how the author has explained, I calculated based on the author's explanation for the longevity using this Udu Dasa methodology. The calculations are very complicated, so I haven't put the calculations here, but I just put the final results. So if we assume that no special rules are being there on this particular chart, the Udu Dasa, according to the Udu Dasa, the longevity is 59 years. And once I included the special rules based upon the charts, the planet's position, you can see it here. Like if there is no special rule, Sun longevity is 3.8 years. And once I applied the special rules, because Sun is in the 12th house from Rashi Lagna, it became to 1.9, exactly half of it, 50% is dropped. For Moon, there isn't any difference. Like that, you can see that there is a drop either in half of it, or the AR gets doubled, something like that. And then by applying the special rules for this, the longevity is 54 years. So based on the Odu Dasa methodology, the native's longevity is somewhere between 54 and 59 years old. So let's go and see, because this Udu Dasa methodology is something unique. What I did was I went and used the standard classical Vedic astrology longevity methodology to see how much would that give. Let me go and see. Here I tried to calculate the longevity of this particular native using the classical rules. First and foremost, what I see is that is this native a Alpa issue or Purna issue? If the 8th house lord is placed in 3rd, 6th, 9th or 12th houses, the native will be a Alpa issue. That means the native will not be alive will not live for more than 36 years. Here in this particular chart, for this particular native, the native who was born in Buenos Aires, Argentina, or the native who was born in Galxay, United Kingdom, Sun, the 8th house lord Sun is in the 12th house. So based upon the rule, the native will not is Alpa issue. The second rule is that if the lord of the first house is placed in the 2nd, 4th or 8th houses, then the native will live up to 60 years. So who is the lord of the first house? The lord of the first house is placed in it's placed in the 10th house. The lord of the first house is not placed in the 8th house, second or that, but so the native will live up to 60 years. That's what it said. Since the two methods gave different longevity, what I did is I went and looked at the Maraka planets. Maraka means the cause of death planets. To figure it out, what's the other, can I narrow it down the longevity from, because here it says one rule says the native will not live more than 36 years, the other rule says the native will live up to 60 years. So the delta is more than 30 years. That's not the right way to do it. So when I looked at the Maraka periods, you can see here the Maraka is Mars. Mars is the 4th and 8th house lord residing in the first house. And Mars Dasa began in 2069 and ends in 2076. And Jupiter Dasa begins in 2094 and ends in 2110. The high possibility for this particular native during the period of Mars and the sub period of Mars, that because Mars is in the first house and it is looking at the 7th house, and Saturn is looking at the 4th house, and Saturn, the second house lord, is also looking at the 4th house. There's a high possibility for that particular native to live until the Mars Mahadasa and Mars Antardasa. That means somewhere between 56 years old. So what I found out here is that according to the classical rules, this native will longevity is 56 years, close to 56 years old, between 56 to 60. Between 56 to 60 years old is the native's longevity. According to Udu Dasa, I found out that it is between 54 and 59. So you can see clearly that since the two Dasa systems, two methodologies that I used is very close by, One thing is for sure is that this native will longevity is between 54 and 60. 6 years is the delta.
Thank you for watching this particular video presentation. This video presentation is just came out of some sort of a curiosity that I had it when I read a lot about December 12th, 21st December 2012 is going to be an topic, whatever that guy is, and the world is sure to end, or a lot of things happened, and the religious fanatics said a lot of things, and so I was curious to see like what exactly was is happening from an astronomy perspective. Once I understood what exactly is happening from an astronomy perspective on that particular day, I was curious to know like what's happening from an astrology perspective. So I used the Sidereal Ephemeris and did this research, and then I presented this for you all. Hope you like this presentation. Thank you very much once again.